The Minnesota Wild have made a shocking move, sending down David Jiricek to the AHL in Iowa once again, and this has serious implications on his career path going forward. We're going to be breaking down this move and also what it means going forward for the Minnesota Wild, and especially after such a big move to acquire him a few seasons ago. We have a lot to cover on this topic, as well as coming down for the next few days, the fallout from this here. So I ask you one favor, ladies and gentlemen, and that's if you haven't already, be sure to join the channel here and hit the sub button. We're posting daily videos surrounding your Minnesota Wild, and we need to get straight into this because obviously this is just another major bump in the path for David Jiricek and his development to become an NHL player. And this is something that sparked, a few days ago, really, when we did see Hunter Hynes get sent down. And when Michael Russo tweeted this out on October 14th, 2 days ago, they've reacquired Ben Jones, or recalled Ben Jones, excuse me. The big question was if the same thing would happen to David Jiricek if the Wild got out of the game healthy. They obviously did. Now we see the repercussions of this move, as that move was made today. David Jiricek reassigned to Iowa. Same rationale as Hunter Hynes, which, as you saw from Michael Russo right there, is to just get him playing a ton in Iowa. Now, this still is, ultimately a good idea, rather than having him sit in the press box and watching these games, especially when you have Damon Hunt in the NHL, who at this point right now, and for at least what it seems like for the next little while, will be staying in the NHL due to him needing to pass through waivers. They did trade him for David Jiricek, and were able to reacquire him through the waivers to begin this season. And ultimately, they want to keep him. They don't really want to risk sending him down through waivers once again. But David Jiricek in this instance has been someone that we've been talking about a lot, that needed to get into this NHL roster, had his one game, looked very, very good, and ultimately got sent down. And there's a lot of options that really did come from this. And of course, playing time, that's the one big thing. You don't want him sitting in the press box. But another thing is what you're going to get from him. And we know David Jiricek, how good of a player he is, how good of a defenseman he is, even though there still is quite a bit of development to be had. At what point does that have to go to the NHL? At what point does that development stop in Iowa and need to translate to the NHL game? Because as we've been watching him play throughout training camp, the preseason, and his one regular season game that he did end up playing, he looked sharp. He looked good. We know his offense is there, and with the few stats that we've seen from him in the past, it really causes a bunch of questions as to why he is not remaining on this roster. Now, we do have a few things, once again, David Jiricek. One big thing that I do want to note here and really point out, which is probably going to be a bit of a point for concern if this does stick, is that he's in the final year of his deal. Obviously, he is an RFA. The Wild have the control that they would need to get him back on this team. But if we do see David Jiricek down in the Iowa for majority of the season, and the Wild not really giving him a chance, he's voiced his frustration about leaving, his development in Columbus ultimately got him leaving and getting to the Minnesota Wild. But there's, just some thought in my mind that we may see that once again if he ultimately does not get back to the NHL this year. I'm positive he will, of course, regardless of injuries or not, although, you don't want to see any injuries. There is some options there that David Jiricek would get called up. But when you're in the final year of his deal, he would not want another two-way deal. I think that's something that is very safe to say. Nobody really wants a two-way deal unless that's kind of your role at this point. But for David Jiricek, a former 6th overall pick, for 21 years old, and as good as he is already, and been not given the opportunity at the NHL, that frustration is still lingering around for him about this entire kind of mindset and idea behind his career path thus far. And going into how the defense is structured, like I said, there is an option there for him over Zach Bogosian. Now, Bogosian brings a veteran kind of role to this team that there are a few players that only bring, and of course that would be really Brodin and Spurgeon at this point right now, as well as Middleton. But going into, this season, there was a big part in my mind that I would have seen David Jiricek over Zach Bogosian, and the Wild are going to be bound to make some moves this year. There's no doubt about that. And ultimately, I'm curious to see if one of those moves is to make room for David Jiricek here in this lineup. Now, as far as we see right now, things are working out well. They're playing well, especially on the power play. The offense really has not been given kind of the idea we want here to start the regular season, but the power play has been absolutely dominating over that. And you see the power play versus 5v5, 9 goals on the power play, well, 10 at this point, and 5v5, they're at 0, and, it goes to show what situation the Wild are in, what they need to do, and if they wanted to really kind of clean this up, David Jiricek would have been the guy. His offense is fantastic. He has an absolutely insane shot, and if you wanted to bring some sort of offense back on there, and I mean pairing him with Jacob Middleton would have been a phenomenal idea. So there is something, I think, if we do not see the offense really get going, that David Jiricek would be back at some point, especially if on the defensive side of things, their offense is not where they want to see it. However, Zeev Boyum has really, at every level, exceeded every expectation. He's been a guy that this team is, relying on the power play now, and, pretty much this entire set of stats here, these splits, are contributed by Zeev Boyum in some fashion. So there is, a part of the Wild wanting to continue with what's working, but there is a big piece as well that they need to get going in the 5-on-5. And whether that is from the point, whether that's, just being in dirty areas in front of the net, whether that's Moose standing inside the crease, something has to go. And I think that David Jiricek could have that spark. And it's kind of interesting to see why they didn't at least try it for another game over a guy like Zach Bogosian. But going into it as well, and kind of continuing on that power play topic, you see this from Nathan Murdoch here. The Wild scored 39 power play goals in 82 games last year. They're already at 10 through 4 games, and kind of all contributing it to Zeev Boyum. So, it is a factor, and it is a big part of why here, but David Jiricek also on a power play would really fit in well with this. And I mean, from what we've seen, this comes from Dober right here, from September 2025, and, last month, kind of going over his career path thus far. So the trajectory of development has been a bit rocky, especially when he did join the AHL after being drafted with Cleveland on the AHL for Columbus' AHL team. 38 points in 55 games. 24 of those were on the power play. So it's not like you're looking at a guy like David Jiricek who is a liability on the power play. He is capable of being on that power play and being another, very, very big talent. And he probably wouldn't suit on, line 1 right now, especially with the way that's working. But you throw him on power play line 2, have him there. That's an absolute crazy shot from the point. And for a guy who's 21 years old, that's definitely something that will get your confidence up. That's something that will get your momentum, your kind of boost in every single asset that you need to become a successful NHL player. So it's still just another interesting thing, and I kind of want to get your guys' idea here, your mindset behind it, and as to why this move could have been made. And once again, as we did go back to Michael Russo, it is the same reason as Hunter Height, and just to get more games here in Iowa. So hopefully it's just something where we're going to see him back soon. Hopefully it's not something that you're going to make him stick down there. And from the way that we've seen this team kind of go out and put a lot of their eggs in one basket in that trade, we really haven't given him any sort of, kind of idea that, hey, you're going to be a regular on this team just yet. And of course, the lacerated spleen last year, definitely something that he was dealing with that, had to keep him out. So he didn't get the opportunity there. But from what we've seen, from everything that they've kind of alluded to here to begin this season, they rely on him, but have not given him the opportunity yet. So I want to get your guys' opinion on that here in the comments below, especially, with everything that's been going on, with kind of the memory of what some players, some prospects have kind of done in the organization earlier on. And, I'm just curious to see what you guys think. But that is all I have here in this video. If you enjoyed, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.